Here in Maine, the first Monday in June is Samantha Smith Day. The young girl from Manchester captivated people in America and the Soviet Union when, at 10 years old in 1982, she wrote to the Soviet premier expressing concern about the threat of nuclear war. She received a letter back along with an invitation of a lifetime. We'll look back at that in just a moment. In the meantime, more than 40 years later, the annual ceremonies honoring her legacy of peace continue. At noon today, lawmakers, the group Veterans for Peace, and others walked out in the rain to dedicate a busy on-ramp to the Maine Turnpike in South Portland as Samantha Smith Way. Veterans for Peace Maine President Doug Rawlings believes this is more about visibility than this simple gesture.
Somebody coming from out of state, and all of a sudden they see the sign Samantha Smith Way. Who's Samantha Smith? Da-dum-da-dum. Read about her. So that's what we want to do. We want to get it into the schools. We want kids to realize the power of peace, nonviolent direct action.
The sign came about because of a recent state bill sponsored by State Senator Ann Carney of Cumberland. The first Monday in June has been Samantha Smith Day in Maine since 1987. Now back to that invitation. During the Cold War, that young girl from Maine got a chance to go to the Soviet Union to spread her message of peace and experience what life in Russia was like. 2 years later, she died in a plane crash, but her overseas visit still has an impact on Mainers and people around the world. In 2018, Cindy Williams looked back at the 35th anniversary of that invitation and the effect it had.
The year 1983, the U.S. and USSR are in the midst of a Cold War, nuclear-armed nations moving to point more missiles at each other. Star Wars is not just a movie, it's an arms race. The fear of nuclear war is palpable. The head of the KGB, Yuri Andropov, had just been elected head of the Soviet Union and was featured on the cover of Time magazine. That caught the attention of a 10-year-old girl in Manchester, Maine.
She wanted me to write a letter, and I just, without thinking, said, well, why don't you write a letter? And I went off to do my thing, and next thing I know, she's got this letter for me to look at and to mail.
In that letter, Samantha Smith congratulated Andropov on his new job and said she was worried about nuclear war. She asked what his intentions were and finished by saying that God made the world for us to live in peace and not to fight. She reached out in a way that no diplomat really could, and her innocent plea caught the eye of someone at the Kremlin.
It took about half a year to get the letter back from him, but he finally did write back to me. And he told me that I reminded him of Becky in the book Tom Sawyer. He told me how they were really concerned about peace too and friendship, and he said that they would never be the first ones to use the nuclear weapon. And then he invited me over to the Soviet Union to show me how nice the people were there and what a nice country Russia really was.
What followed was a whirlwind for the Smith family, a 2-week action-packed trip covered in detail by the Russian media. John Doherty covered it for NewsCenter.
The Smiths were incredible people, all three of them, and incredible by being as normal as they were in the midst of extraordinary situations they were placed in. Samantha was just a lovely 11-year-old girl. She hadn't been prepped for this stage in her life, but she handled it all very well. And that was all very amazing.
While the U.S. government helped get their visas, the State Department did not sanction this trip.
The United States didn't know, the government didn't know how to handle her. I mean, she was freelancing peace.
It was scary, and we knew there was this potential for anybody who talked to the Soviets to be seen as some sort of communists themselves.
Some worried that while Samantha's intentions were pure, her trip played into the Russians' hands, allowing them to soften their hard-edged image to the world.
How'd you get the idea to write the letter?
But many were smitten, not just by this beautiful child, but by her message.
The kids here and all the people here are really much like Americans, except for the language. And I didn't have any trouble making friends.
I think Samantha's letter was couched in strong, clear language. And she asked out of her innocence the kind of questions that many people perhaps feel, but don't take the time or don't have the courage to ask.
Cindy Williams reporting back in 2018. There have been a number of tributes to Smith, both here in Maine and in Russia. In 2008, she posthumously received the Peace Abbey Courage of Conscience Award for her activism.